So I would like to introduce my lovely friend Sue, who I promised I would introduce last week. 3 years ago, thereabouts, I met Sue at a convention, and she had been 3 months prior to that given 3 days to live. So if you can imagine, she's gone through some amazing transformation from very, very poor health to thriving. So I'd love to talk to her, and I'll introduce you to her now. So I'll just welcome you in, Sue. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, we might just get straight into it because we know nothing about you, Sue. So could you just introduce yourself and tell us what life was like before your transformation, please?
Okay, so I'd actually been sick for about 20 years with a condition to do with my vocal cords and my larynx. It started out as a virus, but would stop me from breathing and talking, etc. Over those 20 years, I used a lot of natural therapies most of the time, just about everything out there that's available. But in the process, I also had to have surgery to keep me alive. So in total, I had 39 surgeries on the larynx and the vocal cords. So, yeah, life 2 and a bit years ago got to the point where the surgeons basically threw their hands in the air and said, there's nothing that we can do for you, go home, make sure all your affairs are in order, talk to your kids, you've basically got 3 days to live.
Wow.
And my larynx at the time had reduced to the size of a small popper straw, so that size, whereas it's normally about a 20-cent piece. Which meant then at that point I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, I couldn't talk. Because of the lack of oxygen in my body, my heart rate had skyrocketed. My brain was shutting down altogether. I also could not get any further than from the bed to the couch occasionally. I was almost totally bedridden. So couldn't do anything. No housework, no cooking, nothing at all. Even to have a shower, it was like running a marathon. And my heart rate would go so high at that point that it was almost critical in its own right to do something as simple as a shower.
Sounds horrendous, Sue. Sounds horrendous. And that must have been really frightening to be given that news too, that you had
it was awful. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely awful.
Yeah. So my next question really to you, and it might seem a little bit of a silly question, is like, well, how did you decide to undergo a transformation? What brought on this transformation?
Well, I never stopped asking for an answer or praying for an answer. I continuously believed that there was something out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just, continued doing that along the way. And a beautiful girlfriend that had also been helping care for me during that time had gone back to Brisbane and hadn't been up for about 2 months, I think it was. And she came back up to help look after me and happened to walk through the door, and I just said to her, what have you done to your skin? Because she's got major skin issues and has done for many years, and her skin looked, 100 times better than what it was 2 months earlier. Mm-hmm. And she threw a tube of this at me. And I said, what's that? And she said, it's redox signaling. And I said, what is that? With whatever, like that was a whisper of a voice that I had at that point. And she said, look, we've got to get on the phone and talk to Jeanette, which was a friend of hers, but I'd met Jeanette once or twice beforehand as well. And Jeanette also got Janine on the phone who was a health practitioner in Melbourne.
Okay.
And I said to them, you know, I haven't got much voice. You're going to have to talk. And they sent me some videos and stuff to look at as well. And I just said, get it to me as fast as you can. And yeah, from there it started to turn my life around. So a massive transformation from that point.
Massive transformation, yeah. Because 3 months after that is when I met you, and I had no idea. I knew you had something going on with your throat. I could obviously hear it, and anybody listening now will notice that you don't speak, you know, super fast, and you still need to take time to have a breath and those sorts of things. But it's nothing like obviously what it was when you had only been given 3 days to live.
No, like I'm, you know, 1,000 times better than what I was back then.
Yeah.
I'm certainly still healing. And yes, you know, after being sick for 20 years, you don't expect an overnight
No, no.
sort of, and especially with what has been going on with my throat and the damage that has been done from the 39 ops.
Yeah.
That damage, to reverse that damage, is quite a long process.
Yeah.
But yes, it's slowly, like my throat now is approximately that open.
That's amazing.
So, you know, amazing change to what it was. But yes, I still have limitations.
Yeah. But you are still going through your transformation, aren't you, Sue?
Absolutely, and that's a continuous process for me. And but each time and each step that I do towards that, I seem to take another step forward too. So
yeah.
I certainly have my little bits where I'll go through a detox, or I'll maybe take a step backwards if I've been pushing myself too hard. But I'll certainly then catapult forward again. So
Yeah.
yes,
So what
process.
is that? Yeah, and what does that process feel like? What's the biggest emotion or the biggest? Well, I think emotion that you feel going through this transformation, even from the beginning to doing it now, and what maybe you expect in the future.
The biggest emotion, I suppose, it gives me joy for life. Like, you know, I certainly have a love for life. I want to get out there and I want to do things again. That I, you know, I'm still, as I said, with still limits, but I'm certainly back doing a lot of the stuff that I love.
Yeah.
Such as gardening and cooking and being able to, you know, walk on flat ground.
Yeah.
Few kilometers, you know, I can get in and out of my house easily. All those things, you know.
Things that we take for granted.
Yeah, I can do the washing, I can do the vacuuming, and you know, people say, "Why would you get excited about housework?" Well, when you can't do it, you get excited about it when you can again.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
it's yeah. So joy is probably the biggest part of it. You know, I certainly, some days I go through, oh my God, this is hard work. But I've got to keep going. You know, I've got to keep going for my sake, my husband's sake, and my children's sake. You know.
Yeah. And for them, I would imagine that joy must be there every day to have their mum and their wife present. And
absolutely, and they're very protective of their mum these days.
I bet they are. Did you believe that you would find this? I mean, you said you hoped and you prayed. Did you really believe that you would find something?
I'd got to the point where I was starting to doubt big time. I had got that point where I was going, oh, really? Is this the end? You know?
Yeah.
But there was something inside of me that still hung on and said, you know, there's got to be an answer. There really has to be an answer somewhere.
And how about when you started to take the molecules? Was your belief, did it skyrocket then, or was it still an ongoing process of, I don't know, or how was your belief around that?
Okay, my belief, was like, oh, wow, you know, this is happening and this is happening. So it was like a curiosity as well.
Yeah.
But I suppose for the first nearly 6 months, because I had to come from a stage where I was so debilitated. I didn't do a lot in the first 6 months. I stayed at home still and did things around the house. But in that time, I studied a lot more of the science and also, looked at everything I could possibly get my hands on to do with redox signaling molecules.
Yeah. So your life now is quite different to what it was prior to your transformation?
Absolutely. And my belief in it now is unshakable. There's a part in me now going, really? You don't get this? Come on, why not?
Yeah.
But my belief in it and my whole life has changed so much. Yes, I get out and do things. I'm working again, sharing these molecules. I run a monthly event. I go to other women's business networking groups. I'm out in the garden, transforming my garden as well.
Yeah,
and growing my own food. I get to go out and do things with my kids. Like on Saturday, I went to the markets with my daughter, and then we went and did other stuff during the day, So all those things, I wasn't able to do. Today I've done the washing as well as, the interview with you and a few other things. So.
Yeah, amazing.
So, and just being able to talk to you, that's a major change to start with. But, to eat 3 meals a day, to drink normally, to do all those things, I now take it for granted and I forget sometimes, Wasn't
Isn't
too
that beautiful?
I got out of the car at the shopping centre here, and normally I'd get out and I'd always park opposite the lift, and I got out and I still parked in the same spot, but I got up and walked up 3 ramps, and then when I got to the top I went, wow, I was never able to do that. So
look at me go.
I just forget sometimes, and then I just go, oh wow, I was able to achieve that.
Yeah, unreal. My last question, Sue, is what is your biggest lesson learned from this whole experience?
Okay, I had to really think about this one last night and write that down, so I might actually just read that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that the answers will be presented to you if you keep asking, and that there's always an answer out there somewhere, and just keep looking, don't give up.
Beautiful. I love it. It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. And you have been so fortunate. I feel so lucky to know you, because had I not met you, had that whole chain of events, had your friend not introduced the molecules to you, would no longer be here, and I would never have met you. And I feel very, very privileged to know you.
Oh, thanks, honey, because I feel privileged to know you guys too, and all the beautiful friends we make, and
absolutely.
along the way, it's amazing. So.
Yeah.